Today I'm going to talk to you about the Bhagavad Gita, which, along with the Bible and the Quran, is one of the three most widely circulated books in the world. We have a huge scriptural background with the Vedas, the Brahmanas, and the Upanishads, about which I have talked separately. And then, after those three categories, we come down to what is known as Smriti, which are theological derivatives from the Vedas, but which are also important. They include the Puranas, the Itihasas, the Ramayana, and the Mahabharata. Now, in this huge mass of literature that we have, there is one small text, only 700 shlokas, which stands out. And that is set in the Mahabharata, that is the Bhagavad Gita. Now, first of all, we have to understand why the Bhagavad Gita is so important. I think there are 4 points that I'd like to place before you as to why the Bhagavad Gita has attained this importance. The first is, the Bhagavad Gita is a scripture of conflict. And we are all now in a conflictual situation. The Upanishads are entirely different. The setting there is a quiet ashrama or the banks of a river where there's the Acharya sits and the students sit and they talk with each other on the great problems of life and death and the meaning of existence. That is one setting. But the Gita is in a conflictual setting. The war is almost begun. The conches have already been blown, and the two armies are standing against each other in the battlefield. And it is at that juncture that the Gita comes. Now, it's very interesting because very few scriptural texts are found in that sort of a situation. And I think that is why one of the reasons why the Gita is so important. Because we are all in a conflictual situation. We are not sitting in ashramas. We are not sitting in quiet, soothing places. We are in the midst of life. And remember, Kurukshetra is not only a plain in Haryana, Kurukshetra is within each one of us. And each one of us is facing a battle in our own lives. And therefore, because the Gita is a scripture of conflict, I think it attains a very special importance. The second reason for the importance of the Gita is the unique personality of the teacher in the Gita. Every text in our tradition has a guru and has somebody, one or more disciples. Now, we have great gurus in the Upanishads. We have Yajnavalkya, we have Angirasa, we have Shvetashvatara, great rishis, great seers. But in the Gita, the guru is no one else but Sri Krishna himself, who is looked upon as an avatara or an incarnation of the divine. And therefore, he is not like any other guru who is just a normal, realized human being. He is a divine personality. And because he is the guru there, therefore his words have a special importance, a special significance, a special meaning, which perhaps other gurus also are very good, but not quite to the extent that Sri Krishna is looked upon as an avatara, as an incarnation of the divine. And therefore, when he speaks, as he does in the Gita, most of the Gita is questions and answers, again, like the Upanishads, between Arjuna and Krishna, but it's Krishna who does most of the speaking. He's speaking as a representative, as an incarnation of the divine. And that, to my mind, is the second reason why the Gita is so important. The first, that it is a scriptural text, and we are in the midst of a scriptural conflictual situation. And the second, because of the special personality of the Guru in the Gita. The third reason, I think, is the unique relationship between the Guru and the Shishya, the Guru and the disciple in the Gita. The Guru is always held in very high esteem. Akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam tatpadam darshitam yena tasmai Shri Guruve namah. He who introduces us to the great power that permeates the universe, he is the Guru. Agyantimirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Guruve namah. He who is the surma of wisdom removes the darkness of ignorance from our eyes. How beautifully they put it. He is the Guru. The Guru is one who shows the way. Literally, Guru means the remover of the darkness. And therefore, the Guru is supposed to show the disciple which is the way to go. He doesn't travel in place of the disciple. He simply shows the disciple which is the way to go. Now, therefore, the relationship between the Guru and the Shishya is a very close one. In the Upanishads, the disciples are constantly referred to as Somya, oh handsome youth, oh favorite youth, and so on. But in the Gita, the relationship between the Guru and the Shishya is quite extraordinary. And there's one shloka where that comes out clearly. In the 11th chapter, after the great Vishal Virat Roop Darshan that Krishna has given, Arjuna then prostrates himself in front of him and says, Tasmat pranamya pranithaya kayam prasadaya tvam ahamishimiryam piteva putrasya sakheva sakyu priya priya yarsi devaso. It's an extraordinary statement. He said, you have shown me this great vision. I am deeply grateful to you. I prostrate myself in front of you. And I demand grace from you. What sort of grace? Piteva putrasya. Like a father to a dear son. It's a very close relationship. But even the father-son relationship is within the structure of the family. He goes beyond that. Sakheva sakyu. Like a friend to a dear comrade. Friendship knows no distinctions. A pauper and a king can be friends. It can cut across religion and caste and creed and nationality. So friendship is something very important. But he goes even beyond that. Sakheva sakyu. Priya priya yarasi devasam. Like a lover to the beloved. What an extraordinary relationship. The combination of a father's father's love for the son, the love of a friend for a dear comrade, and the love of a lover for the beloved. All these are combined in the integral relationship between Krishna and Arjuna in the Gita. And that's what makes it so important and so moving. Because these are relationships that we all know. It's not somebody speaking from some seventh heaven and that we are cringing humanity listening to what is being said and trying to follow. That's not the way it is in India. It's not some invisible deity who's guiding us. Here is Krishna in flesh and blood, standing on the field of the battle, and with this close relationship between him and Arjuna. He's speaking. And that's the reason why when he speaks, it touches our heart. And we know that it is a very special relationship. And the fourth reason, I've said the first reason is that it is a scripture of conflict, and we are in a conflictual relationship. The second is that the Guru is Avatar himself, the divine, descended into human form. Third, the very special relationship, the integral relationship, shall we say, between Krishna and Arjuna. And the fourth is the universal applicability of the teachings of the Gita. The Gita is not directed at any particular community, or any caste, or any creed, or for that matter, for any religion, which is why the Gita is so popular around the world. It is not a constricting text, as it were. We have no chosen people in our tradition. Everybody encapsulates the spark of the divine, and therefore the teachings of Krishna are of universal applicability. He says, in fact, in so many words, anybody who is genuinely striving towards the divine, I make his faith firm. And when he says I, he's speaking not only as Krishna, but as the representation of the divine in this world. And so he says that whoever approaches in whatever way, I will make that faith firm. It's a remarkable statement. And it goes back to the Rigvedic dictum of Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. The truth is one, the wise call it by many names. And that has been the tradition. One of the main mantras, one of the main key words or key notes of the Indian spiritual tradition, that there are many paths to the divine. We do not believe there's only one path. and say, no, this is the only path, you've got to follow it. If you do not follow this, you'll go into perdition, or you'll boil in oil, or you're finished forever. No. There are multiple paths to the divine. And each human being is striving towards the divine in his or her own way. And therefore Krishna says that whoever is genuinely striving for the divine, he will make that faith firm. Now this is why the Gita is so important. And this is why the Gita is so widely accepted by people. In a situation, conflictual situation, a text in which God himself is speaking to man, a integral relationship between the Guru and the Shishya, and the universal applicability of the Gita. Taken together, these four aspects of the Gita help us to understand why in this huge ocean of literature that we have in our scriptures, why this one text has become so extremely popular and so important.